Welcome to Trionic 7, the YouTube channel for Saab enthusiasts. Does your Saab 9.5 suddenly leak coolant? Well, ours did not a long time ago, and I thought I'd share with you how I solved it. Long story short, it's this famous or infamous coolant bypass valve that can break on you. I want to apologize for the very dirty car. It's been a vacation and we've been driving quite a lot since I last cleaned it. But what I want to show you is that our leak occurred slightly behind and inside here behind the left front wheel. And there was suddenly a puddle of coolant, and you can feel the antifreeze between your fingers because it's quite sticky. So I tried looking from above to see where the leak was, but I was unable to because for some reason the coolant drips by along the hoses and lines, so you can't actually see it from above. So it looked completely dry from above, and I actually had to lift the car up to actually see any leakage or drips at all. And this is my main point about the coolant bypass valve. It's actually quite hard to diagnose. But if you can look under the car and see that the leak is somewhere high up behind the engine block, so high up and then close to the left front wheel, and maybe 30-40 centimeters inside here, dripping down on the ground, or a foot if you're from the US, then it's probably the coolant bypass valve. Interestingly, when I replaced the valve, this is the old one, it looks fine. I see no problems at all, and it looks identical to the one I removed, the one I installed. So you're basically going to have to try this fix. But since the coolant bypass valve often is the culprit, this is probably what you need to do. Here you can see a photo of me that my wife took as I was changing the valve myself. Pouring rain. We were eager to get away on our road trip, and suddenly we had this failure. So there was a bit of stress. But we made it, and hopefully you will be able to make it too. Please note that this is not a full DIY video, since I already did the fix. But it is my hope that this video will help you understand how to make this procedure and the best tools for the job. First, I'll remove some plastic covers. There we go. And also this plastic cover here. You can just pull it upwards and it will come loose. When the covers are gone, we want to remove the cable harness. And you move this red plastic lock thingy to the left of the car, which will then separate the harness. You put it aside. Then you want to separate this electrical connector here. You take a flathead screwdriver and you take this little wire part and pull it outwards. Like this. And then you can remove the cable. Like so. Next there's two 10mm bolts. This one and this one. They are best removed with a deep 10mm socket, but you can also use a wrench if you don't have access to a socket wrench. Take the plastic cover off. Just pull it gently forward. Now we can slowly pull the whole cable harness away from the firewall. You also see this black hook. There you go. Now the valve is down here, and the cable harness will be in the way. So just take a rubber cord and gently pull this whole connector away. You can connect the bungee cord to, say, the springs that holds your hood up. This way you can get free access down to where the valve is. And this is where the fun starts. In the middle of the frame is the actual valve. The round cover is the top of the valve. And I have removed the vacuum line going into it. This vacuum line is probably going to be very old and brittle, so I'll be replacing it with a silicone hose at the same time. As you could see, it's very cramped down there, and you will want to loosen a couple of hose clamps. I highly recommend using a wire-operated hose clamp plier. You see this part here moves this little tool over here, and it allows you to easily access hard to access hose clamps. So basically all you want to do now is to find the little cable tie that holds the valve to the firewall. You cut this cable tie so that you have some wiggle room for the valve, and then loosen all 3 hose clamps with the wire tool. It might be a little tricky to loosen all of them, but don't worry, it's actually going to be easier putting them back together. You might also lose a bit of coolant since you're actually opening the cooling system, but it's not going to be much, just a few drops. Be careful so you don't mix up which hose goes where. These 2 are identical in size, so do not mix them up. If you're unsure, put a marking on the hoses so you know which one is the top and which one is the bottom. When you got the valve away, it's actually much easier to put it back together. Put back the new valve and the hose clamps and the hoses. It will actually slide on much easier than it was to remove. Then put back the vacuum line or replace it with a silicone hose, as I just said, and clamp it down with a cable tie to the firewall. Then it's just the opposite of removing everything. Put the wire harness back together and check to see if it works. Again, the hardest part is actually to remove the valve, and it's much easier to put the new one back in. Put everything back, put the plastic cover back and the wire harness together, put the cover back here, make sure everything looks nice and tight. Then check your coolant level. If needed, you'll have to add some more coolant. First, because you lost some coolant during the leak, and secondly, because you lost some coolant when changing the valve. So be sure to check the manual to see which type of coolant and the amount you need. Then start up the engine and let it idle for a few minutes. Turn the engine off and check the coolant level again, and fill up some more if necessary. And you should be done with installing your new coolant bypass valve. And that's the end of the coolant bypass valve video. If you have any Saab questions or questions about this repair, be sure to type in a comment below, or follow us on social media and ask your questions there. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, Instagram and Google+. So see you later. Bye bye.